Wednesday, I mean it's time for Helping Seniors of Brevard. Let's get things underway. Here's the host of the show and the executive director of Helping Seniors of Brevard, none other than Kerry Fink. Hi, Kerry.
Hey, John Harper. It's great to be here around the radio every Wednesday at lunchtime on 90.3 FM WEJF. And for those of you that are joining us online as well at WEJF.net, we appreciate you tuning in. And if you're catching this as a podcast, you're going to get a lot out of today's show because we have in the house one of, at least in my opinion, preeminent experts on all things as it pertains to elder law. We're talking about a gentleman who is a board-certified elder law attorney, also past president of the elder law section of the Florida Bar, and has been a very, very long-time friend of the work of helping seniors, helping Joe Steckler, our founder, going back into the days actually when Joe was building up Brevard Alzheimer's and then launching Helping Seniors 15 years ago. Welcome, Bill Johnson. How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Good. We're good, and we're excited. We're going to ask you to grab a paper and a pencil because we're going to share some stuff that you're going to want to know about as far as it goes to year-end planning. You know, as we get toward the end of the year, all of us start kind of a cycle. We get ready for the holidays. It also causes us to kind of look back and go, did we do the things that we wanted to do this year? And can we do better next year, whatever that means? Hopefully we're learning from our mistakes and we're building on our successes. And one of the things, though, that is always important for us to talk about is, are there things that we should be thinking about legal planning-wise, things you can do? I know people talk about, like, as a charity, we are, in fact, a charity. Helping Seniors is a 501c3 nonprofit. And so we're always, at the end of the year, reminding people, you know, it's not too late to make that year-end donation to keep the work of helping seniors going forward strongly into 2026. And you know what? When you do that, maybe there's some tax benefits and things, too. So what we kind of want to ask Bill's help with is, what are the things we want to think about that we may want to take steps on before the end of the year gets here, and then maybe also spin it around a little bit and talk about what are the things we want to plan so we get things right or even better for the new year. So I think you're going to get a lot out of today's program. The other reason I want you to grab a pencil and a paper is because we are chock full of holiday events, and I want to share those details because you are certainly invited to those, and I want to make sure that you can get them down and see what fits in your calendar. As you know, as a nonprofit, Helping Seniors exists to inform, educate, and connect seniors and their families to resources that make a difference, and we do that a number of different ways. First, with the Helping Seniors Helpline. Let me give you that number so you can jot it down. So anything we talk about today, you could always call Karen or one of our great volunteers, and they will be happy to fill in any missing blanks. You say, hey, I missed the number when they were giving me this or the date for that. You can get that just by calling the Senior Information Helpline. And if you wanted to do that year-end donation, you know what? They can help you there, too. So the number that you want to call is 321-473-7770. I'm going to say it again, 321-473-7770. So we run that call center, which takes over 4,000 calls every year. This year is no exception. In fact, it's actually up a little bit this year in terms of number of calls. But also, we operate the Senior Resource Center of Brevard. We call it Joe's Senior Resource Center because we named it after Joe Steckler, our president and founder, the guy who got Brevard Alzheimer's built up, call them Joe's Clubs to this day. And so we thought it would be appropriate to call our center Joe Senior Resource Center. It's a big facility there on 1344 South Apollo Boulevard. The great folks at Omni Healthcare make it possible for us to have the center there on the second floor. And we do an awful lot of educational programs. We're going to talk about those, which is another reason why I want to make sure you had a pen and a paper so you could jot down some of that information as we go along. So sit back, relax, get ready to take some good notes, get some good information, and let's talk some things about getting ready for the end of the year. So, Bill Johnson, I'm sure that you get calls from people maybe as they're getting toward the end of the year, and then they start asking questions about hey, do I need to do this before the end of the year? How do you usually start off a conversation with that?
Well, a lot of times towards the end of the year, what happens is people get together with their family.
Yes.
So they get together on Thanksgiving or on Christmas or any of the other holidays, and that's always a good time to start talking about things.
Yeah.
Do you have your documents done? Do you have your beneficiary designations? What happens if you get ill? What happens if you need long-term care? And then usually more towards January is when we get the calls like we were with mom and dad, and we talked to them on the phone all the time, and they seemed fine, but we came to the house and things weren't exactly, kosher going.
I'm smiling when you say that, because literally last week, our guest, another longtime friend of Helping Seniors, Jennifer Barton, with Seniors Helping Seniors. It's an organization that they hire seniors to go in and provide help for seniors. And we were talking about that. It really is cyclical, that they'll get flooded with calls about this time of year because maybe everybody got together at Thanksgiving, the kids traveled into Florida, and the calls usually go something like, well, every time we would call mom and dad this year, how are things? Oh, it's fine. And we'd have a pleasant conversation and hang up. And then apparently when they get down here, they're like, there's a little bit more that needs to happen. So, if it's happening on the getting some extra help, extra eyes and hands, in a home, for seniors, so that the adult kids of seniors are feeling better, especially if they're from out of state and they can't really be here all the time. But I guess you see the other side of it when people are starting to ask legal questions that might spring from that.
Well, as we always talk, you can be proactive or you can be reactive.
Yeah.
The proactive is you get together with your parents or your loved ones and you ask them if they've got their affairs in order. Do they have these documents done? What's the plan if somebody has a long-term care event? You take the proactive approach. The reactive is you show up and things are a mess, and all of a sudden you're trying to figure out, do they have a power of attorney? What do we need? We need to get in to see a lawyer quickly, because Dad's Alzheimer's is getting worse. That kind of thing. So there's a proactive side to it, and there's a reactive side.
We talk about this a lot in the world of helping seniors. Joe Steckler always called it making an aging plan, and to make it feel a little less like a homework assignment, although it is a good homework assignment that you should do. We call it getting your ducks in a row. And what we're always doing, Bill, because we get the calls about everything, legal, medical, financial, transportation. People are always calling us because they're running into situations, and maybe as smart as they are, this is just a whole different lane for them, and now they're trying to figure out senior issues without really having necessarily ever had to think about this before. And usually, if you're in the reactive stage, then it's kind of in crisis. Well, they'd say mom's got to go to rehab by Monday. I don't even know where to start. Questions like that. But I was thinking also, that's part of the reason why I think Joe always had us be so focused on education, is because if we can help somebody with that aging plan or getting their ducks in a row ahead of time, it's even when you hit into that whatever catastrophe or whatever thing is going on, at least you have you've given it some forethought, and you have a way to kind of like navigate through it. And I think as an attorney, we've talked about this, you make much more money solving people's disasters than you do helping them get their paperwork done early. So from a business standpoint, even though you spend so much of your time, you do a lot of lectures at like one senior place to help people understand the things they need to know to ask and things like that, but you still would rather have people get to you ahead of time when there's plenty of time to talk options and ideas and things like that.
Correct. Where we're not being pressed for time and trying to get things done immediately. And even if you're a private person, you can, do all these things and then just put it in a binder somewhere and just tell them something happens here where you go. And you'll find all our legal documents, you'll find our financial information, all that stuff, and that way, at least they know you have it done, even if you don't want to share the details of it.
Yeah, that's another point too, right? Because we were talking about this literally before we were on the air. You were sharing a couple of. I'm telling you, Bill, if you ever wrote a book about some of the experiences you went through, it would be amazing. You could, of course, change the names and protect the innocent or not so innocent or whatever. But it is amazing because what you were sharing is like, because I think I was asking you the question. I said, if somebody does take the time to get things organized ahead of time, even if the family may have some disagreement, like, well, I think it should have been this way or this way, at least it's clear you spoke what you wanted to have happen rather than this fight breaking out. Well, I think Mom wanted it this way and all that kind of stuff.
Correct. And also, if Mom does all that way, she's got capacity. Yeah. Then we don't have a big, fight about what... trying to imagine what her wishes were.
Right. So by getting ahead of the curve, and we always say this, so we say get your ducks in a row, and then we add this. We say, number one, don't try this on your own, because a lot of people are tempted to then, try to take matters into their own hands. Maybe they bought a paperwork off of an office supply store, or they saw a commercial on TV and said, oh, I can do my own will online and things like that. And they have no idea that they just put themselves in harm's way and won't learn that they did until the time that the documents need to work, and then they don't. And there's no redo.
Correct. I can't tell you how many times I have somebody tell me, well, if Mom becomes incapacitated, I'm named as the executor in her will. I'll just take over everything. And it's like, no, that doesn't happen until she passes. You would need a power of attorney and a healthcare surrogate to manage her finances and healthcare, respectively.
Right. So that's really the point. Like, if we were going to sit down at the end of the year and start to make like a little punch list, if we were going to do this the right way, I can think of several things that we might want to do. If we haven't done paperwork, we would want to make that a priority. But maybe if we've done paperwork, is this a good time to go back and review and make sure it's still accurate for what you had in mind?
That would be a really good time, especially if there have been major life changes like divorces or marriages or births or deaths. Those kinds of things may change the whole plan.
Yeah, I was asking you a question again before we got on the air. I said, I think I was reading an article where they were talking about, well, what happens is if a person that you named in your will no longer is living, and how does that work in the whole probate situation? And that's to the point, like, if you keep all that updated for the most part, you've told stories on the air before where somebody's come in and, maybe at one time the person was fine, but now they're incarcerated or something. And so for a power of attorney, or they moved out of state, and then it's just not practical. And this is one of the reasons why you got to keep this stuff up.
Yeah, you really do need to keep everything up to date. And not just your legal documents, but, one of the hardest things sometimes is somebody passes and we don't have any idea where all their finances are, and then we kind of have to sit by the mailbox hoping statements show up.
I was thinking about that because here again, another story you were telling, like, or if the information is incomplete, like the case that you were sharing about somebody that had very specific instructions about how property was to be disposed of, and it ended up being very valuable property, except that the way they had read the instructions was completely unclear because it had to do with which side of the family the property originally came from. It was like, wow, how would a judge even begin to sort that one out?
Right.
So if you're just the average person and you're getting towards December and you're getting ready for the holidays, and maybe you're the senior that yourself, and you just want to get ahead of your planning, what are some things that we would ask we should be thinking about to try to organize before the clock strikes December 31st and we're going into the new year?
Well, the first one would be your estate planning documents, or your will and or your trust. Also, all your beneficiary designations, for your IRAs, 401ks, life insurance, annuities, all of that. Then your incapacity documents, the durable power of attorney for finances, a designation, a healthcare surrogate, living will, maybe a preemie guardian declaration. And then again, we need to know where your finances are, so all your financial information. And some people just put all this in one big binder.
Yeah.
So it's all right there. And then additionally, if you have any special health care wishes, what those are. You know, do you want to stay home? Do you want to, ever go to a nursing home? Sometimes you don't have a choice, but, and then where is all your health insurance information, all that kind of stuff as well.
Well, and it's not only that, because when you were talking about like a nursing facility and things like that, isn't that another aspect of all this? We talk a lot of times about planning ahead. We call it either Medicaid planning, or maybe if you served in the armed forces, they call it VA planning and things like that. And the key thing is there's a lot of stuff, if you don't know, could trip you up at the time that you need to get that help.
Correct.
And so isn't it a good idea to maybe sit down as you're like looking back over the past year and looking ahead into the next year to maybe see, have I really thought my way through those things?
Correct. It would be good to have a family discussion. What is the plan if somebody has a long-term care event? Are we going to do everything at home? Are we talking assisted living? Are we talking about moving in with one of the kids? What is the game plan?
That's so funny that we're talking about that, because almost everybody probably knows somebody that's in the middle of some kind of a discussion like that. We were just talking about that in our house because one of our neighbor friends is having that conversation in their family as it pertains to a mother. Okay, if mom can't handle this on her own, what's the next plan? Is she going to move in with us? Are we going to do something different? And of course, there's different opinions inside the family as to what should be done. But not talking about it doesn't get it solved either.
Correct. Putting your head in the sand.
Yeah. Well, so that's the second thing. We always say like, there's two things we always say about this: get your ducks in a row. Is number one, talk to somebody who knows the lay of the land and knows the right questions to ask. But then also, with aging problems, they usually don't get better with time. So you want to tackle these now. Don't be the ostrich and stick your head in the sand.
Exactly. And talking with family about it is probably very important to figure out, who can do what. You may think you'd be able to move in with your child, but your child may be raising a whole family of their own at the time.
Yeah. So, and stuff changes, right? Like we've talked about this before, something that was plausible maybe for somebody to be a power of attorney. At one point, maybe if it was a kid, maybe their job has changed and their responsibilities, or they have to travel, and there's all these other things going on, or maybe they've moved across country, and now you've got to revisit that plan, I guess is what I'm saying, right?
That is very true. Yeah, you do have to keep updating the plan.
So if we talk a little bit about, because I know without really diving into the topic, we've talked a lot about that most of us don't really understand the legal nuances, and so we'll do something that seems to make sense on a piece of paper, but then we find out that after the fact, that's not going to work at all. And I'm using the example that we talked to, maybe everybody sat around the Thanksgiving table and said, well, father says to son, you're going to wind up with a house anyway, so let's just stick your name on while you're here in town, let's go stick your name on the title, and, or other kind of things. Well, you're going to get this much of this account, so why don't I go ahead and start gifting? And you don't even realize that you're putting yourself in harm's way when it comes to things like look-back periods for Medicaid or VA or whatever, right?
Well, look-back periods, then you take the cap on your property taxes off. If change ownership. So there's a lot of bad things that can happen by doing that.
Right, and then we make these decisions thinking that we're planning ahead, but we're actually creating a disaster is what we're doing then at that point.
Correct.
What's a good way for somebody if they say, okay, I don't want to just let, life happen. I want to be on the proactive side of this. Where do we begin? What's something somebody should say? It's a little early. Usually we wait a week or two, and then after a few holiday parties, we start in with our New Year's resolutions. But if we're going to get started with that early, what would we be setting ourselves up for here?
Well, I think the first thing is go educate yourself.
Yeah.
I mean, there are a variety of seminars, and now you can do a lot of stuff online.
Yeah.
I would warn you if you're looking at things online that you really need to look at Florida-specific things.
Yeah.
Because, the laws change and vary by state. So, but there are a lot of ways that Helping Seniors has a website full of videos and radio shows.
Yeah, we've done so many. In fact, it's funny. I was working on the schedule because we have to submit these in ahead of time because the TV shows broadcast out on Space Coast Government Television. So we always have to put together a schedule each month, and we publish that in the Senior Scene magazine so people can see what time which episode is broadcasting, and then also. Of course, all the shows are available on our Facebook page. They're available. We have a YouTube channel, Helping Seniors of Brevard. We have all the shows archived on our website, which is called helpingseniorsofbrevard.org. And I was thinking, Bill, like as we're scheduling these TV shows, we have covered a lot of different topics. Like I scheduled this. You did a program called Power of Attorney and Superpowers, and that's been it's been a few minutes since that show was done. But I was thinking, see, people might say I've heard of Power of Attorney before because my attorney up in when I lived up in the Northeast told me I needed to have a power of attorney. But then since then I moved to Florida, and now the power of attorney is a whole different thing. If you don't understand these superpowers, the power of attorney that you had may not be accepted by your bank, and then you're back to square one anyway.
Correct. So it's, the other thing is you need to make sure that the video or whatever you're watching is not too old.
Right.
But that's a document that needs to be reviewed by an attorney in Florida if you move here for somewhere else.
Yeah, because I was thinking too, I love in this day and age, and especially this is probably going to make it worse, not better, with the ability to harness AI and start asking these questions. But what I've always discovered, whenever I ask questions, particularly if I'm trying to get even just a general sense of legal stuff, you'll do a search and all this stuff will come up, and you'll start reading through it. And then the first thing you'll realize was this is from the state of Washington. So the law could be the same, but more likely it's not at all the same when you get to Florida.
I've noticed it hallucinates quite a bit. There are attorneys who have used it for their legal research, and the AI comes up with cases that don't even exist.
Just made it up.
Made it up, totally.
Wow.
So you really have to watch out for that.
Yeah, and then the other thing, though, is that you might read something and you say, oh, that sounds like it applies here. But then when you get to the fine print, you find out it was a decision from 1974. And who knows if that's still correct or not,
Correct.
And so here again, I kind of come back to you could maybe do some of your own research, but we always come back to you got to talk to somebody, whatever chapter of your aging plan you're trying to do, whether it's, the legal side, financial, whatever, you want to find somebody who's a local expert that you can speak and learn from and trust so that you don't have to try to do all the heavy lifting on your own. We're going to hit the second half of our show in just a moment, but before we get there, we're talking with Bill Johnson, board-certified elder law attorney Bill Johnson. You always are doing a bunch of educational series over at One Senior Place and things like that. If people want to find out, I know they can go to floridaelderlaw.net. You have a lot of resources there, but let's give the phone number before we get to the mid-show break too.
Yeah, they can call the office at 321-253-1667.
Good. We'll be right back with board-certified elder law attorney Bill Johnson, the second half of the Helping Seniors Lunch Hour, right here on 90.3 FM WEJF. Stay with us.
You're listening to Helping Seniors of Brevard, and let's get back to more of the program with your host of the show and the executive director of Helping Seniors of Brevard. Here is Kerry Fink. Kerry?
Thank you, John Harper, as we continue our lunch hour together every Wednesday on 90.3 FM. WEJF, and if you're listening online at WEJF.net, we thank you. And if you're using this as a podcast, we thank you too. And be sure you share this along with folks in your orbit as well, because of the things that we've been talking about with board certified elder law attorney Bill Johnson is basically planning for the end of the year. And we are basically having a conversation about things that you might want to think about as we go into the end of the year. And during the first half of the show, Bill, we were talking a little bit about now is a great time to review, and you were just sharing that you often find the phone calls pick up at your office because family get-togethers seem to provoke or promote the need for taking some steps as we get toward the end of the year and next year.
And that's very true. And also sometimes the stress of the holidays, if somebody's on the fence, just the stress of having to do everything is a tipping point.
You know, that's true, too. And I was thinking, like, you do an awful lot of seminars. Again, the law office is William A. Johnson, PA. And you guys do a lot over at One Senior Center. You are often offering, like, free, seminars, workshops, so people can kind of get immersed in this. And we always talk about the fact that it's important to not try this stuff on your own. In fact, on your website, floridaelderlaw.net, I never get the title right, but I remember very specifically it's like a long-term planning book or something, but it's a little booklet that you can download from your website. It's always in the center section of the Boomer Guide. So if you find one of those, you can just plop it out and read it. But what I like about it is it's a very good, well-written kind of guide to the things and the questions you might want to be asking yourself or thinking about to make a good aging plan on that.
Yeah, it's called the Florida Long-Term Care and Nursing Home Answer Book.
Yeah.
So, and you go to the website, floridaelderlaw.net, and you can download it.
Yeah, no, it's a good, and you take great pains to update it each year. And again, we've talked before where you said that oftentimes really one of the best pieces of advice is to get somebody to come to one of the sessions that you have at One Senior Place. They can either call your office, they could call One Senior Place. You can call us. We'll look it up for you too. But see if one of those might fit into your schedule. And then really take a proactive step, because we were also talking, Bill, in the first half of the show, while you are very skilled and helpful to families when they fail to plan, much better if they have a plan ahead of time and we can get all that organized for them on the front end, I think.
I prefer that.
It is much less stressful and much more cost-effective for the person looking for the planning. Well, we're going to dive back into the topic. I said at the outset of the show, would like for you to grab a pencil so you can jot down a couple of important pieces of information. I'm going to start by giving you our phone number, which is the Helping Seniors info line, 321-473-7770, 321-473-7770. I say that's kind of foundational because anything that you would hear us talk about next, you go like, oh, I heard him talking about that, but I didn't get a chance to jot it down. So if you call us at 321-473-7770, we will be happy to fill in any blanks that you might have missed. And so the other thing, before we dive right back into the program, there are so many good events that are coming up this holiday season. I want to make sure that I give these to you so that you can maybe jot these dates down, see what fits on your calendar. But one of the fun things, Bill, we're going to do this actually next Wednesday. So literally about the same time we're here on the radio, we're going to be feeding some people lunch at the Senior Resource Center. It's called the Nourish Your Spirit Cooking Class, and it's presented by our friends Ellen Jones and at Senior Helpers. And here's what's fun about that. They have been working together with Chef Jillian Zebries of Chefs for Seniors, and it's a great cooking class. You know, whenever we go to the doctor, Bill, the doctor's always saying, oh, you should be on a Mediterranean diet, or they're always giving us pieces of advice, and then we only listen to half of it. Then we pull through a drive-through instead. And what Chef Jillian likes to do is help you find a way to actually make those recipes that are going to do what the doctor ordered. And so this is 11 to 12:30 because it's free. But you do have to RSVP because they got to know if you're coming for the lunch. So you got to call them. But that's next Wednesday, December 10th, 11 to 12:30. And if you've ever had Chef Jillian stuff, she's a really good cook. Just saying. Yeah. So, and then on Thursday, we have our senior information education series, which happens at 10 a.m. to 12 noon. We have two topics going on. We have at 10, to 11, we do what we call the Knowledge College for Aging, and myself, together with Nancy Deerdorf, who is our Director of Development, registered nurse by her lifelong practice in the industry, and Karen Wernland, who runs our center. It's going to be a panel discussion. We're going to talk about your aging plan, putting it all together. So if you combine what you're going to get out of the rest of today's show with some of the stuff we're going to talk about next Thursday, hopefully you'll be in a good shape to hit the new year running. And then at 11 o'clock that same morning, we're talking about next Thursday, not tomorrow, but Thursday at 11th, at the Senior Resource Center, 1344 South Apollo. We do our wellness series, and we're going to have Lydia Rivera, who's a nurse practitioner. She's also in charge of the Central Florida Walk with a Doc program, and she's going to talk to us about how that program works. And then one other thing that I want to give to you right away, for the 12th, this is Friday the 12th. So we've already talked about Wednesday, Nourish Your Spirit, Thursday, the education series, Friday, this one's taking place at residences at Zon. So Zon Beachside, we're talking about 1898 South Patrick Drive, right there in Indian Harbor Beach. For years now, it's become actually a tradition. Our friends Greg Kennedy, Alfredo Chavarria at Zon Beachside, they have always been kind to host our holiday party. So it's a morning drop-in. This is not a big deal. You just pop by when you can, 10:30 to 12 noon next Friday. The Residences is on, and they give us a big space right there on the top floor of that building, and they always put on such a great festive time. There's always snacks and probably hot chocolate and coffees, and just a good time to meet folks and meet your team from Helping Seniors and just relax and enjoy the holidays. So that's Friday the 12th, so a week from this Friday, 10:30 to 12 noon at the Residences at Zon. And Bill, I'm hoping we'll see you there. We'll see how the schedule works, but if you're welcome, and if you're hearing this, you are welcome to join us as well. So I have one more announcement, and we'll save that one for the end of the show. But I wanted to make sure you got those dates. So we're talking about Wednesday, Thursday, Friday of next week. Wednesday, Nourish Your Spirit at Senior Resource Center. That's the lunchtime event. And then Thursday morning, 10 to 12, is our education series at the center. And then Friday morning, 10:30 to 12, is the holiday party at the Residences at Zon. Again, that address, 1898 South Patrick Drive. So, Bill, let's jump back into our topic. We're trying to help folks think about the things that would make sense for them to be concerned with for year-end planning. And in the course of your career, you see people who do it well, and you see people who did not do it well. Let's try to be among those who do it well. What would you tell us to do?
Well, another thing we haven't really talked about is a lot of elderly people are quite lonely.
Yes. Yes.
And this is the holiday time, and they don't have family. They don't have people to come check up on them. They don't have people to make sure they got their affairs in order. And so those people really need to have a plan.
Yes.
And, regrettably, they're not the ones that, they may have outlived all the rest of their family, and maybe they didn't have kids. So it's a good time to look out for our neighbors as well.
I was thinking about that as you were saying that, because people ask us, like, who calls the Senior Information Helpline? So a lot of times it is the senior themselves. Occasionally, or not occasionally, actually a lot of times, it's the spouse of a senior who's now confronting some stuff, and they're trying to help sort this out. Of course, as we talked about earlier in the show, it's often the adult children of mom or dad or aunt or uncle who are calling in and trying to see, like, I don't know what to do from here. We got to figure out something. But many times it is just a concerned neighbor, like Mrs. So-and-so lives 3 blocks down or 3 doors down from us, and, their grass is overgrown, and I don't know if she's able to take care of herself, and what do I do? We get calls like that a lot.
Right. And it's a good time to look out at the people in your neighborhood and make sure that they're taken care of during the holiday season.
Yeah, no, it's true. And we say that's one of the reasons why the senior helpline exists, is I was a joke, Bill. I said, we live in a county full of rocket scientists, so we have some very, very smart people in Brevard County by definition. I mean, these are the guys who figure out how to get us to the moon and do all kinds of fancy technical stuff. And the point that I want to bring up, and I always do bring up, is the fact that you could be very brilliant in your lane of rocket science. But when you're dealing with mom or dad and you're running into aging issues, and now doctors are asking you got to make this decision and that decision, you just don't really know even the right question to ask, let alone the right decisions to be made. And that, Bill, is why I always think it's important to speak to somebody that has so much experience in that lane, like you have. You see it. You see it from helping people with everything from the healthcare surrogates to the powers of attorneys to then end-of-life issues to then estate issues and all that. So when people ask you these questions or come see you about that, they're really speaking to somebody who has a lot of experience, and it's not like your first rodeo.
Correct. You know, they come not only asking for legal advice, they are also asking for practical advice.
Yes.
You know, things that really sometimes aren't even in our bailiwick. You know, like what's a good assisted living?
Yeah.
What's a good nursing home? You know, we're not really the healthcare people, but a lot of times we can steer them to people who know those answers.
You know, that's so important what you're saying, because I always say, like, you can't be an expert about everything. And so in the old days, we used to say, well, you call somebody who has a good Rolodex. Remember when we used to use that? And now it's like, who's got a good contact list on their phone? But that is really the point that, you know, I was thinking about this when you said that. Karen Wernland, who runs our Senior Resource Center, she and her team of volunteers, the most important task you might say you would think might be answering the phone calls. But actually, I think the most important task that they do, Bill, is that they work diligently, and I mean daily, on updating. We have a book we call the Senior Resource Book, and they are constantly checking like what services are available, who's doing what, who do you call when this situation presents itself, and they're constantly updating that. In fact, there was a story that like a year ago, a very, very large, if I told you the name, you'd go, oh, I know that name. Charity had published a guide here in Brevard County of resources, and it was really very well done and very well thought out. And I took a copy of it over to Karen, and I said, this is good. We need to go through this and see if we have all these resources there. She starts going through it. She goes, well, this program's out of money. It doesn't exist anymore. And so the problem was, I'm sure it was accurate the day they printed it, but a lot of times that's the problem. You got to stay up to speed. That's, again, kind of back to the point about working with you, because whatever you might have done could be out of date, but you got to stay up to date on all of it.
I used to do that, and that's a Herculean task.
Exactly.
Of trying to call everybody and find out, you know, they changed names, ownership, and when the Boomer guy took that over,
you were glad.
yeah, then I just reduced my book and became an insert. But yeah, it is a Herculean task because every year the legislature passes new laws, allocates money different ways. And you have to really know where that money's going and what some programs are gone, but new ones come in.
Exactly.
And you really have to keep up to date with how it all operates.
Yeah, so I was thinking the point of that is, this is why we always tell people, don't try this on your own. Like, you don't have to be a master of every lane. You just have to be smart enough to call the people for the lane that you need help in. Like what you were saying is like, you would be smart enough to say, I can help you on the elder law stuff, but if you need an assistance to figure out the right assisted living, let me get you to somebody who specializes in that. So everybody can be like the best that they can be in that particular lane. And what you really need when it comes down to the elder law questions is somebody to help guide you through the process, because I always go, Bill, we don't even know the right questions to ask, let alone how to answer some of them. And we've talked about this before, like, you know, you'll see this commercial that says, oh, you can just do your will in an hour online. And, you know, I use this as an example. I've tried to fill out government forms online before, and it's like click A, B, or C, and you're like reading through this and you go, well, A is kind of right, but it's not exactly right. B is sort of right. It's like A and a half, you know. And so how do you click the button? And you don't. It's much better if you could sit down with Bill and say, okay, this is where I'm at. How do we word this, you know?
Correct. And some of those government forms are tricky. You know?
Yeah, of course. And that's the point. So, like, if we're going to plan ahead, you got to talk to somebody who really knows the lay of the land and then can help you not only answer the questions, but think through what the ramifications of the answers are, too. That's the other reason why you would want to sit down with somebody who has that expertise to say, well, if you choose this, I've seen it go right this way, but you could have run into that problem.
Yeah, and the current trend is that there's nobody on the government side to help you.
Right.
They refer you, go to our website and fill out the form, and it may not fit your situation right, and if you don't have experience with how to answer that, you may end up not getting services.
Yeah, and can I tell you, because I was just talking to Karen about this morning, because many times we will become somebody's internet search, because a lot of seniors, if it's a senior themselves, or particularly an older senior, when they call in, they've been told by somebody, you have to do this form online, and we end up having to try to navigate them through. Sometimes people will come into the office and they'll try to sit down and help them access, because they say, I don't use a computer, I don't know how to do this. So to your point is, you really got to have all those proficiencies to be able to get through this successfully, I guess.
Correct. And also it comes with experience.
Yeah.
Having done it multiple times.
Well, that's the other thing I was going to say is, like, we jokingly use that expression. It's not your first rodeo, but after you have been doing this, and you've been doing this a long time, Bill.
Thanks, Kerry.
I don't mean it like that. I mean it in a good way. You've been helping solve problems for seniors. Like I said, I met
quite a long time.
I met you when Joe was just helping seniors off the ground. That's 15 years ago, but you were helping him even back in his Brevard Alzheimer's days. So you've been
correct.
And then, like I said, with all your experience, your boards, there's only, 3 board certified elder law attorneys in Brevard County, I think.
Correct.
So out of everybody who hangs out a shingle, there's only a few that said, I'm going to take this to the extreme level and make sure. And then yourself, you're past board president for, what is it? I want to say it the right way, but
chair of the elder law section.
Chair of the elder law section. So you're talking to somebody that really has a lot of, I guess what I would call it, understanding and experience. So I like that, because if I go to a mechanic and they've been just working on cars for a year, and, well, it's making this noise. Well, it could be this, could be this, could be this. If you take an experienced mechanic, go, based on this model, it's going to be that. So that's what we're going to fix, and that's the point, that the experience and the background really can make a difference. So we say, don't try this on your own, and we say, get somebody local that you can sit across the desk with and ask the questions, so that you and have them ask you questions back. Well, are you thinking about this,
Right.
Because those are the things that you would be able to sit down with somebody that comes in your office and, they say, well, I think I want to do this. And then, like you said, you'll start asking them a couple of questions and help them really think through all the ramifications of what they have in mind.
And then even if they can't think of the question at the time, at least they have a contact to go back, and if they think of something later,
right? And then also, isn't that the other point? Is like, if a question comes up and maybe that person can't even speak for themselves, they will go, well, no, we know Bill's law office put this together, so we can call Bill's office and ask, like, okay, here's what's going on. What do we do with this now?
Right.
You can't do that with your 1-800 I did this will online stuff, can you?
You definitely cannot.
Yeah. So as we kind of like think through and kind of like put a bow on it, the talk we want to do is, here we are at the year end. It's a great time for reflection, the things that we did well over the year and the things we want to do better next year, and things we should resolve to do before we get to the year end. Now is the right time to do that. I would say, if you haven't, you take your time and find out when Bill. Are you guys doing seminars in December?
We are. We're doing a few.
Okay.
I don't know exactly.
No,
when,
but I mean, one senior place has it. You can call us. We'll find it. It's probably on your website, or you can call your office too. What's that number again there?
321-253-1667.
And you have, like, what I do remember is you choose like a lot of different topics. So there's, you might think like, well, I got this part under control, but I could learn some more about, another topic. So, I mean, there's all kinds of different ones.
At One Senior Place, we have more than one attorney, too. We have several attorneys who have things going on there. And so I have one at December 16th at 10 a.m. on estate planning.
Okay. So everything we've just been talking about on today's show would be a great opportunity for you to join Bill at One Senior Place for something like that. Because, again, these are free, right?
Yeah.
So it's a great chance for you to sit there, learn a few things, maybe ask a question or two, and probably, I would suspect, if you're serious about it, by the time you get through that class and maybe ask one or two questions with your hand raised, you're probably going to say, okay, I need to get serious about this, sit down with Bill and see if I've got all this going the right way.
Correct. And you can ask most of the seminars, even if it's not mine, they're done by other competent attorneys, and you can ask all the questions you want.
Yeah. And I really want to point people at your at that book, the long-term...
The Florida Long-Term Care and Nursing Home Answer Book.
Because really what you want to do is get some answers going so you know the right questions. The more you prepare a little bit and then let the expert do the heavy lifting would really be the way to do it. So, Anything else that we should add? I want to save a minute and we'll talk about a very special thing coming up on December 19th.
Just stay safe.
Yeah, no, this is good.
And have a great holiday.
Thank you, Bill. So on December 19th, we're going to have a little gathering over at the Senior Resource Center. I mentioned, there's several things going on next week, right? We've got Wednesday, Nourish Your Spirit, the lunch gathering at the office, and then we have our education series on Thursday, and then we have on Friday, the 12th, we're actually doing our little holiday party over at Zon, Residences Zon Beachside. But on Friday the 19th, we're having an afternoon drop-in, 2 p.m. to 5 p.m. And we're calling it Joe Steckler Day. And it wasn't just us calling it Joe Steckler Day because the city of Melbourne actually proclaimed Joe Steckler's birthday, which is technically the 20th. We're just doing this on Friday afternoon so it's easier for people to get to. They actually proclaimed Joe's birthday as Joe Steckler Day. And Joe, as you know, was our founder, fearless founder of the Helping Seniors. And literally, we lost him in January at the age of 90. And literally the last conversation we had together, which was the day before he went home to be with the Lord, was he was like, Kerry, you guys got to keep this going. Seniors need us more now than ever. And boy, I think he was 100% right about that. So we're all committed to keeping the work of Joe going forward. But we came up with a program called the Friends of Joe. And so many people have been donating in to help us. As a nonprofit, we can only go as far as you help us to go. And so maybe, as we were talking about, people are trying to figure out, well, I could do some last year giving. I'm going to otherwise pay it to Uncle Sam, so let me do some good locally. And we are a 100% local to Brevard charity. And if you get behind us, I promise you, we do everything we can to run this the way Joe taught us to do, which is lean and mean and make sure that all the funding goes directly into the community to serve our community with the helpline, the Senior Resource Center, the advocacy programs we do, the media outreaches we do to try to make sure people know the right questions to ask as they go through it. But when you get behind us, that's what you're doing. You're supporting the work of Helping Seniors. And so the Friends of Joe afternoon is to honor the legacy of our founder. It's going to be a fun event. It's not like we've already had the memorial masses, and they laid Joe to rest with honors at Arlington. But this is really just a fun time for us to gather just ahead of the Christmas holiday. So it's going to be festive. It's going to be fun. And we're excited to share some exciting things that we have on tap for 2026. We're going to talk about some programs. We've been expanding the work we do with ARP. There's some exciting things that are coming down the pike with all of that. We have some really good programs that we're going to be getting into next year, and we're going to be sharing those that day. We also want you, if you haven't, to tour through the Senior Resource Center and just kind of see what's going on there. And once again, Chef Jillian Zabrise is going to put on a little charcuterie, so there'll be some nice snacking and fun for the holidays. And you're going to meet all your friends from Helping Seniors. We're all going to be there. You'll meet our volunteer team. You'll see many of the sponsors and partners who help keep Helping Seniors going. But that's going to be Friday afternoon, December 19th, right there at Joe's Senior Resource Center. We named it after Joe. And so we're going to celebrate Friends of Joe that afternoon 2 p.m. to 5 p.m., 1344 South Apollo Boulevard, and we're right there on the second floor. So, Bill, one time, just real quick before we sign off, I just want to make sure, FloridaElderLaw.net, or if somebody wants to call the office.
321-253-1667.
Okay, and with that, we will sign off for this week and look forward to joining you right back here on 90.3 FM WEJF. And next week, we'll be talking to the world-famous Dr. Lee Sheldon of Solid Bite Dental. Good show coming up. Thanks for joining us today. We'll see you next week.